Everyone faces doubts. There will always be something about you that someone else will doubt. How we deal with them is what defines us as people. When I was 4 years old, I had my first 2 kidney surgeries. I spent a few weeks in the hospital, eventually returned home, and thought everything was normal. But 1 year later, I was blindsided by bad news from my doctor. He told me I would never be allowed to play a contact sport. Now, to a lot of you, this might not seem like the end of the world. But growing up with an older brother who is now a football player at Johns Hopkins made this news particularly difficult for me to swallow. When I was 6, my brother began to play lacrosse. And me, being my brother's biggest fan, I was determined to do the same. There was nothing I wanted more than to play. So being the son of a businessman, I decided to take a more mature approach, and I drafted a PowerPoint entitled, "Mommy, I want to play lacrosse." She gave in. We went back to the doctor's office to discuss the idea of playing lacrosse. He told us he could make a one-of-a-kind kidney guard to help protect me on the field. But he said it still wasn't a good idea to engage in any intense contact. In other words, real lacrosse play was out. My brother then asked, will he ever be able to play? The doctor replied with the phrase that would drive me for years to come. I doubt it. My brother then bought all the equipment I would need to play. The catch was, I would have to play a position called FOGO, in which I take a face off and then run off the field. But I was determined to be the best at it. I worked all summer. My brother taught me drills to practice, and I broke numerous windows in doing so. When I finally got on the field for my first face-off, I lost terribly. I was awful. The next time I went on, it was even worse. I was getting dominated. That didn't change. I took around 200 face-offs in my lacrosse career, and I truly believe I only won 3. After years of begging my parents to let me do more on the field, they finally gave in, without my doctor's approval. But that was enough permission for me. I found myself doing much better away from the face-off position, and eventually became the captain of my 8th grade team. Much to my parents' dismay, I spent almost all day playing lacrosse. The homework thing wasn't nearly as interesting to an 8-year-old. Years went by, and my drive to play lacrosse to the best of my ability never changed. But in my sophomore year of high school, I was shocked to learn that my left kidney would need to be removed. I had the surgery in January, and I missed a lot more school than anticipated. I was in the hospital for a little over a month, and just before I was released, my doctor told me that she doubted I'd be able to play lacrosse this coming season. I nodded politely and said, I understand. But a week later, I decided I was ready to play anyways. Many pop stitches and trips to the hospital later, I made it through a pretty decent lacrosse season. That summer, I decided boarding school was the best way for me to improve my lacrosse skills. I transferred to Portsmouth Abbey last year. I headed into the lacrosse season not knowing what to expect. Would I be any good here? Would the Abbey players be more athletic than me? Hundreds of worries like that flooded my mind. The worry that did not cross my mind was my health. But 1 week into the season, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and missed the first 3 games of the season. I was extremely sick for the remainder of the spring term, and I finished the lacrosse season feeling about 50%. I spent the summer struggling with doubt, not from a doctor, but from myself. I shut down. I doubted everything I'd worked for. I truly didn't believe I was good enough to play at this school or good enough to play in college. I was a mess. If it wasn't for my brother, I don't know if I would be back at the Abbey today. He came into my room after my 3rd straight day in bed and said, Mitch, you have proved so many people wrong in 17 years. You proved me wrong, Mom and Dad wrong, plenty of doctors wrong, everybody. You were never supposed to play at all, and now you have the chance to play college lacrosse. I got angry and kicked him out of my room, shouting the typical response, you don't understand, and continued to feel sorry for myself. But then I realized how right he was. I walked into his room, and we went and played lacrosse for 3 hours. The most memorable thing I've ever heard is what my brother told me when we were driving back from the field that night. He said, other people can doubt you all they want. Just stop doubting yourself or you'll collapse. You set your own limitations. Don't let anyone else do that for you.